Hello and welcome to Management Case Study November 2019. My name is Helen Crofts and I'm your tutor for this course. Here is a list of the resources which will be available to you at various stages throughout the course. If you log into the eTraining platform, you will see a detailed course programme which talks through each stage of the course and gives you an overview of what should be completed at home and what we will cover in the classroom element of the course. There is also an introduction to management case study. This is particularly useful if you haven't done operational case study, but will also give you some idea of the difference between operational case and the management level. The study text is also available if you need some extra help. We have created some technical recap videos too. These talk you through the main content from E2, P2 and F2. And explain how it might be examined in a case study environment. You should also by now have access to the pre-seen information. On the classroom phase, we will use the familiarisation workbook exercises, and there will also be one mock worked through in class time. There will then be a second marked mock set as homework. You should watch this analysis after you have read through the pre-seen information at least once. It is expected that as you proceed through this analysis, you will need to pause to think about the information in the pre-seen, as well as answering some questions which will help you to think more deeply about the company. Make notes on your answers to these questions and bring them with you to the classroom course so that we can discuss them together. This analysis will take each section of the pre-seen information and pull out the useful snippets, and also question the information we have and what it might mean. So the first section is just an introduction, but it does give us some useful bits to remember. We are dealing with a sportswear company called GSC. The company is multinational. You are a management accountant. We also need to refer here to the currency, which is Geoland dollars. As is usual with management case, you play the part of a financial manager, and although your main area is North America, the examiner has opened this up to potentially include the other regions too, so anything is fair game. We then have a section on the industry. The first part of this doesn't tell us much we don't know already, just describes the kind of products sold in the sportswear industry. We are told that there is global growth of 4% per annum for the last 5 years, which we will refer back to at a later point. This growth is explained by an increasing awareness of the importance of a healthy lifestyle and the role which sports play in this. There is also a trend of wearing sportswear as general day wear, particularly by women, we are told. This section does place sportswear in the fashion industry, which is worth bearing in mind as we work through. Here is a question for you. Perform a pestle analysis and make some notes on your thoughts ready for discussion. The next page introduces us to more detail on GSC. We don't want to get too much into the history, but it is worth thinking about the implications of the entrepreneurial nature of the founders. We learn that GSC focuses on quality and performance rather than high fashion. With this in mind, the clothes are targeted at athletes in a range of different disciplines. Thinking of the methods of growth here, we could say that, using Ansoff, they have developed a product development approach, starting with running gear and expanding. They have also developed new markets, in particular new geographical locations. We are told the company has debt finance. This could present some financial risk, but we will understand this better when we see the financial statements later on. 6 years ago, the company acquired a sportswear manufacturer, a departure from their organic growth approach. We may be told this as a signal that further acquisitions might be in the pipeline, and we will need to consider the implications of this. We also need to consider the fact that the financial statements will consolidate this subsidiary. We also need to consider the fact that GSC is listed and, crucially, only sells through retail partners. As yet, it does not have its own stores. We will need to consider the pros and cons of this approach in case this situation changes in the exam. The next page contains some graphs showing performance for the last 4 years. A couple of points to note. It does look like most of the growth has come from clothing. There appears to be some growth in accessories, but very little in footwear. We need to think about whether the footwear company acquired is as successful as hoped. In terms of channel, online sales have almost doubled in the past 4 years, whereas retail partner growth seems much more stable. Given the general change in the retail industry, this is probably not much of a surprise. Depending on how much you know about sportswear, you may find there is not much to learn from this section. Note that GSC charges a premium price and owns the GSC trademark. This may be a clue as to some counterfeit goods issues in the future. Here is a question for you. Can you perform a stakeholder mapping exercise? Who are the stakeholders, and how powerful and interested are they? Fabric design and development is a key area of GSC's value chain. GSC works together with suppliers on the development of new fabric. When you have read through this page, consider what could go wrong here for GSC. Are there suitable controls which we would expect to see to mitigate the risks? Also note the section at the end of this page on patents. Again, this may be a flag for something cropping up in the exam, and is certainly something we will need to discuss. GSC outsources all manufacturing, and the network of manufacturers appears to be quite complex. Read this section carefully and think about how this can best be managed. We should also consider the ethical issues involved with the supply chain at GSC. They are dealing with a large number of suppliers in different countries and have a responsibility to ensure these suppliers are all treating their employees fairly. That is quite a big undertaking. GSC seems quite heavily reliant on their efficient systems. IT security must be a key concern. As well as outsourcing manufacturing, they also outsource logistics to a number of partners. GSC makes use of distribution centres, 9 in total, to gather goods and then ship them out to the customers and retail partners. We are clearly told at the top of this page that inventory management is crucial for GSC. Read through this section and then make a note of the data which may be produced by the systems discussed, and the decisions this data will support. The main aspect of marketing discussed here is social media. It is worth a look at the Under Armour Instagram account to see some of the activity which companies like GSC might get involved in, showcasing use of the sportswear and activities undertaken by athletes sponsored by the brand. We learn that 70% of the sales are through retail partners, leaving 30% through the company's own website. GSC controls the pricing carefully in order to manage the brand. Concept shops are a new initiative, and as such we should consider them carefully and discuss during the course. Online sales allow GSC to broaden their global reach, as well as have some direct contact with their consumers. Again, we are reminded of the importance of the systems at GSC. Sponsorship is another aspect of GSC's marketing and brand building. Think about the details we are given here. How could we assess whether a particular sponsorship arrangement is worthwhile to pursue? And how could we assess the effectiveness of an existing arrangement? We may be provided with further numerical information in the exam to review this. Competition is high in the industry and is a mix of older, more established businesses and new startups. We can see that GSC has a small relative market share compared to its largest competitors. This would classify it as a problem child using a BCG approach. The company needs to look at how market share can be obtained to strengthen the competitive position. Another question for you to consider and make notes on. Perform a 5 forces analysis and consider the levels of competition that GSC faces. The first few pages of the annual report cover the company aims, financial highlights, and organisation chart. The aims focus on the company producing clothing for athletes. Has it moved from this vision? There is also mention here of the company's value chain activities. We will certainly be thinking about this in class. Financially, the company seems to be doing well. We will review this in more detail shortly. So, looking at the organisational structure. Think about this. Can you evaluate the organisational structure? What are the strengths and the weaknesses? We are now provided with the financial statements. Before we do any detailed analysis, let's see what headline figures tell us. As previously mentioned, the company appears to be doing well. Revenue and profits are up. All but one geographical area has seen year-on-year revenue growth, with only Europe moving backwards slightly. As we noted earlier, footwear sales have not seen much movement, but both clothing and accessories are up on 2018. Inventory hasn't increased dramatically, but there is a relatively large increase in trade receivables, which we may want to analyse further. As mentioned, the company does have debt, but it is still relatively low compared with total equity, and overall liabilities don't seem too concerning. Looking at cash flow, we can see that a significant amount of capex was incurred during the year, and the amount of profits paid out as dividends is quite high. Why might that be? You should now get your calculators and have a go at the following figures. Calculating sales growth, growth margin, operating margin, payables days, receivables days, inventory days, and dividends as a percentage of profit for the year. We then have some further analysis in the management accounting information. We will look at this in more detail in the classroom course, but for now, can you evaluate this information and identify 5 useful, interesting bits of information? The final section of the Pre-C material gives us a few newspaper articles to mull over. Read through these and then answer the following question. What are the potential ethical issues which may affect GSC? Once you have read through all of the information and done all of the analysis, that we have suggested during this video, you should now try to pull this together as a summary, ready for discussion in class. A good way to prepare your summary is to think about a SWOT analysis. What are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for GSC? So what's next? Once you have completed the activities in this presentation, you should reread the pre-seen information, review the analysis you have performed, and refer to the technical recaps where necessary.